now? Can you hear me well? Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's
Hello.
the last one before lunch, so we promise not to take too much of your time. Otherwise, I know there will be a rebellion of infamished here. I don't want that. One more thing to curse Brazil, so I will not give you excuses for more. So, my name is José Pugas. I'm the Senior Leading Partner for Sustainable Investments at JGP Asset Management. We are one of the largest asset managers in Brazil and the largest investor in bioeconomy. In matter of fact, 50% of that panel, I'm an investor, but I promise that's not a paid content. It's just a wonderful coincidence, but I hope to be 75% soon. Our idea here is to have a very dynamic panel. And lucky you are just the moderator, so I will not be speaking too much. But my friends will. I'm a big admirer of all of them, and I'm sure that at the end of the panel, you'll be admiring as much as I do on their brilliant work. So, let's start it with no more delays, talking about regenerative agriculture and a little more about land degradation, how we are solving that through financial sector in Brazil. We have perfect examples of practitioners and who are really delivering results in Brazil. I know that everyone has opinion about Brazil. All of them are very welcome, and I hope that we can have even better opinions or less worst opinions at the end of this panel. Let's start with Bruno. So, all of them will introduce themselves. I will not be introducing them. So I'll ask you to introduce themselves, and let's go to the first question so we can answer just in sequence. We understand that Brazil has a very dynamic and sophisticated financial sector and banking sector, and we are also a very well-regulated ecosystem, so I hope. And it would be wonderful if you could share with us some of your insights on how is the current landscape of the financing for restoration and degraded land, and how, including discussing a little bit about carbon credits and legislative status of this issue in Brazil. If you could share a little bit with us about that topic, it would be terrific.
Okay, thank you, José. Well, I'm really happy to be here, to be part of this panel. It's a great honor to be here and divide this panel with each of you. I'm Bruno Tuca. I'm one of the finance and capital markets partners of Mattos Filho, and also the co-head of the agribusiness initiative within Mattos Filho. Mattos Filho is...
A little closer.
Closer. Okay. It's because I'm hearing myself really well. Well, so I was saying that I'm one of the partners of Mattos Filho. Mattos Filho is a leading law firm in Brazil. We are the largest in Brazil, largest in Latin America as well. We are very focused on several green initiatives. We were the first firm in Brazil to establish a ESG practice area that we have 3 dedicated partners to that. Well, going to your question, José, the primary method to finance restoration of land in Brazil has been to the monetization of carbon credits. Despite saying that we do not have yet a regulated market for carbon credits in Brazil, like you already have here in the European Union, there is a bill of law aiming to do that in Brazil that has been discussed already by our House of Representatives, and it was approved there, and now is being discussed in the Brazilian Senate. It's difficult to say when it will emerge and when it will be enacted, but we hope this will happen either at the end of this year or the next or the first semester of next year. Having said that, the way that carbon credits has been commercialized in Brazil is through the voluntary market, and it's a huge market. I know that some of you probably have heard these figures already, but there is a report made by McKinsey that says that 15% of the potential of carbon offset in the world is concentrated in Brazil, and 80% of that would come from the restoration or conservation of forests. And 50% of our of Brazilian emissions of greenhouse gases comes from defloration. So if you want to have an impact on the reduction of greenhouse gases from Brazil, the way is to invest in the restoration and conservation of forests. clients have been approaching our firm in different ways in relation to that. One is to seeking to have a equity exposure to the land and participate in the management and coordination of the restoration or conservation of forests. But there is a catch there. We non-residents cannot have ownership or title in rural land in Brazil. So we have came up with different solutions that using investment funds and different types of vehicles in Brazil, and also equity-like instruments like convertible debentures in order to do that and be compliant with Brazilian law. And also when clients want just to purchase carbon credits for their personal use or for resale in the market, then we have much more straightforward structures like spot contracts or long-term offtake contracts that sometimes are embedded into that transaction, securitizations, and sometimes blended finance. That is another topic that we will discuss here today.
Thank you so much. I would like to jump, Joanna, based on that question. Re.green, and is CFO of Re.green, and she will introduce herself, is one of the leaders in Brazilian landscape of restoration. So I would love to hear a little bit about what are the comparative advantages of Brazil for restoration and how it can be converted into better conditions for the investors. Could you share a little bit with us?
Thank you. Well, I'm Ana. I'm the CFO of Re.green. We perform ecological restorations in Brazil. So we have 26,000 hectares of total area, of which by the end of this year, we have mostly completed the first phase of restoration. We are the biggest company in Brazil for restoration, ecological restoration. And by saying ecological restoration means that we design a forest to be just as good as a primary forest. So we have this mix. We're cookers in terms of mixing different species of trees. We have about 100 different species that we mix, so it can recreate all the ecological process of an area to be just as resilient and diverse as a primary forest in Brazil. And 20% of the whole world's biodiversity is placed in Brazil, so it's very important for us to restore those areas. To give you an idea, 95 million hectares of area has been degraded in Brazil. We have at least 7 to 9 million hectares of very poor productivity pasture land that we can use for restoration and for other products. We have just started our operations 2 years ago, and we see Brazil as a powerhouse for restoration. First, because, well, restoration is not new in Brazil, actually. We've been doing this for centuries. If you've ever been to Rio, you have seen a 150-year restoration called Floresta da Tijuca, which used to be a coffee farm. And, well, for the Atlantic forest, where we in Re.green operate into, we have 85 to 90% of the area has been degraded. And the worst problem in this is that as you have very separated fragments of forests, the biodiversity cannot reconnect by it. So by having those restorations, you're recreating the wildlife corridors. So you have a huge biodiversity impact. But going back to the restorations, so in Brazil we have a chunk of land that we can use for restoration, but we've been doing restorations for a while. We have the scientists for it. We've been doing restorations through NGOs and through academics for a long time now. And we have this huge potential for carbon credits. As for instance, there is one founder of Re.green, which is called Bernardo Strasbourg, and he has an article that states that if you choose an area for restoration, so if you maximize all the natural resources for restoration, you tend to capture 8 times more carbon than if you get any area by chance. And to give you a good idea about this, let's talk about eucalyptus. So if you get eucalyptus here in the northern atmosphere area, you take 30 years to grow an eucalyptus. In Brazil, you take 15 years to grow an eucalyptus. And after research and development, now we take 6 to 7 years to grow eucalyptus. So we have this huge potential to capture and remove carbon from the atmosphere. And also we can draw all the knowledge that we have from the forestry business. And by doing that, we are not only more productive in Brazil in terms of carbon credits and all the products and services that a forest can deliver, but also we can deliver way more than just removing carbon from the atmosphere, because we deliver biodiversity, we protect water resources. So in re.green, on the 26,000 hectares that we have of land, we have over 400 different springs. We have more than 60 endangered species that were mapped, that we're currently protecting and enhancing in terms of the biodiversity and wildlife corridors that we're recreating. So we see this huge potential for Brazil, not only to capture those 15% that we're entitled to, but to be even bigger than that, because our comparables and the same latitude, they do not have the titling chain that we have. We do not have all the potential stability that we have in Brazil. So we have the right to win in terms of carbon credits and other products.
Perfect, Anna. And it's always very good to understand there is ecological restoration can cohabit with productive restoration when we talk about agroforestry and talk about non-timber forest products as a source of revenue, diversifying from the typically based carbon-based project. Re.green is one of them, Belterra is another. One of the phenomena that we are seeing is that there has always been the discussion between Global North and Global South, how to transfer capital from Global North to Global South to make things work better. But we have also to understand the conundrum between consumer countries and producing countries. Most of them, consumer countries on the Global North, producing on the Global South. Brazil is a little bit of both. And so we talk very little about the responsibilities of companies at the Global North that has their supply chains on the Global South. You, as a Belterra, Belterra is one of the companies that I most love. We love them as well. You are driving this transformation of supply chains through agroforestry. Can you talk a little bit about the responsibility of those off-takers, those companies at the Global North with the transformation of supply chain in Brazil through agroforestry?
Hi, my name is Marcelo. I'm the CFO of Belterra. At Belterra, we implement biodiverse, productive systems on degraded land. We partner with small and medium landowners in 4 different biomes, and we implement cash crops. They are denominated in dollars, so cacao, sustainable palm oil, coffee, alongside other food projects. So we're talking about food security, and we top all of that with generating high integrity carbon credits. And just going back a little bit, we can coexist with ecological restoration for sure, because we have in Brazil, as Anna mentioned, 70 million hectares of degraded land. That's approximately the sum of the total areas of France and Italy combined. So it's a huge area that we need as a country to restore 12 million hectares through the Paris Agreement. Talking about the question, we see that's paramount, it's pivotal for the Global South to have not only the companies, the investors, but also the consumers talking about and demanding more sustainable and more traceable ways of producing those commodities and other commodities. We partner with some companies, Cargill, Amazon, Natura. Natura is the leading cosmetic company in Brazil, and they have mandates to secure traceable, 100% traceable and sustainable production in the next few years. And this is driving what's very important for us as a company, is driving long-term off-take agreements. Through that, we can have a stable demand, and we can also, in the first years, we can have premiums for sustainability. And this drives the restoration. It's very important to understand that in Brazil, we need to create a mechanism for landowners to restore their land, ecological restoration, productive restoration, in which they earn more money per hectare. That's very important, and that's what we create since year 1. So we create a mechanism that shares the revenues of those crops that are demanded by those companies with the landowners. So that's very important.
Just highlighting here the importance of regulations such as UDR, CSDR, and others. They're really pushing a lot of capital to the global south to be able to transfer, to make the regeneration of the supply chains. Otherwise, all the costs will be with us at the global south, and just telling we don't have so much capital, and we don't have so much responsibility as well. So it'd be great to have more and more of this connection using trade finance, supply chain finance to finance the transformation of the global south. But just not capital and regulations will make the low carbon agriculture, regenerative agriculture, restoration work. A lot of technology is also necessary. Brazil, everyone knows as a large commodity producer, but not so many knows as a large technological provider for low carbon agriculture. And lucky us, we have someone that leads one of the best technological providers in Brazil. So I would love to listen a little bit about how Brazil can provide more technology to improve the credibility, to improve the quality of the low carbon agriculture, keep producing more, but harming less, feeding more people without deforesting. Can you share a little bit with us?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us here, Pugas. I'm Natália, Global Business Developer at Solinftec. Solinftec is an agri-tech, so we were founded in 2007 with solutions that were installed in the machines to collect data from the field on a daily basis. So we started by collecting data of RPM, speed, fuel consumption, and then piling up solutions on traceability, logistics to make the farmer more productive, right? We work in many verticals. So sugarcane, we started with sugarcane, row crops, forestry, fiber, perennials, and now robotics. So when we think of the Brazilian farmer, they are very technological. I mean, it's easy for them to understand what technology can bring in terms of productivity, in terms of money, right? Everyone wants to be profitable. And when I think of the technologies that we are providing, I'm not only talking about Solinftec now, but I'm talking about Brazil itself. So we started working with the integration of crop, livestock, and forest in the same land. I'm also talking about non-till farming, right, in which we plant directly in the same land without tillage. And at Solinftec, robotics is something coming up right now. Instead of looking just at the machine, we are able to monitor now 44,000 machines worldwide, looking at 12 million hectares. Solinftec decided to go more agronomic. So we created a robot called Solix, which is solar, AI-powered, and able to collect data on a plant level through the fields to start acting. So Solix can do targeted application of inputs, reducing herbicides up to 90%, reducing water, and also eliminate insecticides with no chemicals at all. So we use light bars installed in the robot. They attract the adult insects, and we eliminate them with electroshocks. So zero chemical insecticide for that part of the robot. So the adoption in Brazil was incredible. I mean, the Brazilian farmers, they are aware of the benefits. The same is happening in other parts of the world, in the United States, in Canada, in Latin America, hopefully in the future here as well. So I would say, Pugas, the Brazilian farmer and the Brazilian companies, they are ready to provide the best type of technologies, especially for the carbon market, considering, well, talking about ourselves, we are drivers of that. We are here to provide the data, to provide the solutions to achieve the carbon market more and more. So, yeah, that's
Perfect.
pretty much it.
No, you provide me the cliffhanger that I needed. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Because, as told, carbon credit is a market that depends a lot on credibility. We had a few share of scandals on carbon credits on the last years. Brazil is not an exception. We had one few weeks ago that we treated very well, but because we learned a lot about the other scandals overseas. But we need to differentiate what is high integrity, what is low integrity, what is a good carbon credit, and what is a carbon credit from carbon cowboys that we don't want. And in business lines, in business models that relies on a good revenue stream from the carbon credits, credibility is essential. Re.green, you are well exposed to that. How are you driving credibility? How you're verifying? How you're showing transparently that the carbon credit that is produced by you and produced by Brazil is global, world class, is something that can be invested by responsible investors?
Thank you, Pugas. Well, first, we have made an announcement a few weeks ago that we have closed a deal with Microsoft for 3 million VCUs over the period of 15 years. We're very proud of it, and we think this brings great validation for all the processes and all the activities that we have performed so far in terms of having this high integrity and high quality carbon credits that we aim to perform and deliver over the years. So first, I'd say that we have 3 key words in terms of carbon credits. The first one is additionality. So you have to guarantee the impact that you have in each area is positive, and that by the end of the cycle, you have created something that is better than what you had at the beginning, or the alternative of not having you in terms of that sector. The second one, I'd say integrity. So guarantee that in each step in the process, you have the best quality, the best suppliers, so you guarantee that you have a good impact. And third, permanence. So, and the way that we position ourselves, so we can guarantee that all 3 of them. Well, first, in terms of the impact, if we get any area, any degraded pasture land that we acquire or we have partnerships with, the alternative to that would be to, continue to be a degraded pasture land with low productivity. So by acquiring that and by guaranteeing that by the end of it, you have a fully functional forest, we guarantee that there is a positive impact. And during the process, we monitor this several times. So we can guarantee that we have a positive effect in the communities, and you create a harmony between the communities and the forests. You guaranteed you have a positive impact in terms of the water resources that you're protecting, that you're making it even better in terms of quality. And third, with the biodiversity that you have. So for each property that we have, we plant 100 different species, but we also map the ones that are originally there. So we have something like 300 different species within the same area. So we guarantee we have a huge impact in terms of the carbon credits that we generate. Second, in terms of the permanence, we track all the cattle farmers in terms of the areas that we buy. So we guarantee that you're not deforesting another area. So the one that we've got was actually became a forest. So we have to track, and you have to help to technify the areas surrounding, so you guarantee that you won't have a problem with food security. And we have a great job on that, a great deal of work actually. And third, in terms of the permanence, for now we have only acquired the areas, but our idea is to have the restorations in areas in which you don't have other competitive businesses. So it's usually on hilly areas, and as we only have to plant it one time, we can be very competitive in terms of the returns that we have for those areas.
Bruno, oh sure.
If I may, I would just add that our carbon credits, conservation is great. We need conservation. We need to conserve the forest, but we are talking here about afforestation, AIR carbon credits, right? And we partner with Mattos, Filho and other top regional law firms to create all the contracts that we have with the landowners, that we need to have a contract with the landowner. We need to have a FP, a free prior informed and consent process with the landowners, but also contracts, offtake agreements with the purchasers. And we always consider those law firms that are top tier, top of mind. companies in Latin America.
Great point. And also, we go through a very thorough due diligence to guarantee that the land titling is not an issue, to guarantee that we have all the legal support.
To make that happen, it's expensive.
Very
a lot.
Very expensive.
Restoration projects are known for being expensive, demand patient capital, long-term, and on a topic that the financial sector, Brazil, Europe, US, are not fully educated about. So the risks are not well known. A lot of gossips, a lot of bad impressions, and very few experts. A lot of opinion, very few experts. Well, we are solving that in Brazil through blended finance, mostly. It's a specific architecture that demands a lot of legal support to make it happen. Bruno, can you talk a little about what's the concept of blended finance and how it's being used in Brazil for those brilliant projects of restoration and others?
Yeah, sure. The blended finance is a simple concept. It's basically the smart use of development funds that can be from development banks or multilateral organisms or philanthropic funds as well, to balance the risk return of a certain project in order to attract private capital. So that has been used in several transactions already. There is one transaction being made now, for instance, for IDB, in which IDB issues bonds. The transaction is called outcome bonds, in which IDB issues bonds, guarantee the payment of principal, and in relation to interests, IDB shares this risk of the payment of interest with the project, and the project guarantees its payment or the part of the payment of interest using its receivables from the future sale of carbon credits. So it's a simple structure that can be multiplied several times and using different structures. In Brazil, we have a development bank that's called BNDES. They have a line of credit, a specific line of credit that's called Climate Fund, in which they can finance restoration and forestation and conservation projects in Brazil. So it can be used to do blended finance as well. But in terms of that, Belterra has already made several very interesting projects, right?
Let's jump to that. Well, blended finance can be used we use TFIs or MTBs, or can use other sources. Brazil is really sophisticating the concept of blended finance. And just to make you aware, the largest blended finance model was established by Brazil a few years ago, Plano Safra. Currently is the main engine of finance in Brazilian agriculture, but now is moving to be a more eco-friendly approach. Before it was a way to produce more, now it's a way of producing better. Because 20 years ago, investing in agriculture in Brazil was so exotic as investing now in agroforestry, and it has been proven to be a wonderful business. Belterra, you are using blended finance in very different approaches, almost like a lab, innovation lab for financials. Can we share a little bit about how we are doing that, how we are currently processing blended finance technology?
Sure. Blended finance is paramount to unlock restoration in Brazil. That's for sure. My background is in traditional agriculture. So traditional agriculture is less expensive than agroforest system, but agroforest systems and restoration, they have a very robust return profile. If you consider IRRs, if you consider revenues per hectare, if you consider NPV, several different indicators of financing, agroforest system and restoration will be better than traditional monocultural in Brazil and virtually anywhere in the world. However, to implement agroforest systems, we need a different sort of financing. Agroforest systems will take 3 to 4 years to start generating a massive amount of revenues, 5 times more than traditional monoculture. That's why we have blended finance. And through blended finance, we can, I think that's the beauty of that, we can allocate different sorts of investors that have different mandates in different tranches of the capital. We do have investors, as Bruno mentioned, DFIs, multilateral organisms, but also other organizations, NGOs, companies that have specific funds for that. And we partner with one of those, Vale Fund. They have a mandate skewed toward impact. So we're not talking about grant money, we are talking about returnable money, payable money, but skewed toward impact. They are more concerned initially about the impact and replicating that, fostering other companies to do, so it's a catalytic capital, than initially with financial return. We can use that kind of capital for the de-risking and for junior quotas, call it first loss or an equity buffer. And that's very important, pivotal for our blended finance. When we do that, we can attract other sorts of capital, private capital, financial investors from around the world. And those investors, they do have impact in their mandate for sure, in different shades. So every single investor has a different shade of impact in their mandate. And we can generate through blended finance senior quota for those investors that pay more interest and are shorter term than for the junior quota holders. So it's the upside down, right? We are providing senior investors with higher returns and shorter periods, provided that we have the blended capital. And right now in Brazil, we do have a lot of junior de-risking capital, and we are trying to attract specifically the senior finance-related investors. And sorry if I extend here, but in Brazil, we do have several different instruments, vehicles that are proven, bulletproof, have been there in Brazil for several decades that we are using for blended finance. I'm talking about receivables from agricultural. I'm talking about loans directed to farmers, CPRs, cross. So the names are not important here, but those vehicles are proven. And we have very good legislation. Our stock exchange regulates all of them. Our central bank regulates all of them. So we can provide investors higher returns and the best possible governance and transparency while investing in impact and restoration. That's the best deal.
Exactly. And to be very clear, when you talk about those blended finance structures and why it has been so fruitful in Brazil, so profitable for Brazilian standards and even for global standards, you have to understand that even Brazil is a very large country, a very developed economy. Our debt industry, only less than 2% is based on international investors. Over 98%, we're talking about local investors. So we have to be very innovative, but in a very Brazilian way. Though financial innovation is also something that we are sharing with the rest of the world, and I think that on agroforestry, it's currently is the paramount for international benchmark. Well, we are closing the panel. We'll make a last question for Natália to a little gossip, a little backstage information. You are seeing that growth in Brazilian agroforestry system, in Brazilian carbon credit market, in Brazilian regenerative agriculture. It demands more and more technology. We need to sophisticate our way to manage. No tillage, for most of you, is something new. For Brazil, almost 80% of the farmers apply no tillage. At the same time that we have a very robust forest code in Brazil, very well applied legislature, very applied law in most of the country. We have some challenges in some specific places, but we are really improving, and we are start leading again technology. What can we expect on the next years from Brazilian technology being delivered to the rest of the world and improving our Brazilian ecosystem of low carbon agriculture?
Yeah, finally, producing more and better are in the same page. So what we can expect are products coming from AI and technologies that are actually there in the field, collecting data, being present, living the cycle with the farmer. If we have AI and we don't have the data collection or the information from the ground, we cannot do anything. We have to feed this AI so it is able to transform things. And when we talk about regenerative agriculture, it takes time. I mean, we cannot speed up Mother Nature, right? But with the technologies, we are able to help a little bit with that. So back home, when I was talking about Solix, we are able to help the producers, and by producers I mean the industry, on creating new products such as new seeds or even new inputs that are more intelligent and more resilient to the climate changes that we're having, more robust products, considering phenotyping, since we are watching the plants one by one. So the Brazilian agriculture right now is watching that with good eyes. We are ready to improve. The investments are very important, coming not only from Brazil. I know that we do that, as Burgers was saying, we do that in a very Brazilian way, considering our internal investments. But we're ready. I mean, in the interest from the other countries, from Europe or from the UK, from the US, they are huge, and we're prepared.
Well, we will have to end the panel. I have received the 5-minute announcement. I will ask for one question from the audience, if there is one question. But I would like to make a disclaimer. I was not trying here to sell Brazil for you. I'm not trying here to be a nationalist. It's just I work at sustainability for 25 years, 26 years now. JGP exists for 26 years, the company that I'm a partner of. The last 2 years make us very optimistic. And when we look at Brazilian history, when we decide to do something, we do something. A few years ago, we imported food. We were not able to produce what we ate. Now we are the largest exporter in the world. A few years ago, everybody was talking about biofuels. Brazil was not able to produce biofuels. Now we are the leaders. Renewable, solar and wind power, nobody knew about that 10 years ago in Brazil. And currently, 80% of our energy grid is renewable, with a large share of Brazilian technology for wind and solar. We decided to be the leaders on green economy. We will be. So, based on that, I'm sure we are optimistic, very much optimistic. And I hope that you can help us to convert this optimism in real results. We need everyone on board. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful lunch. I don't know if you have time for a question. Is there anyone who wants to make a question for us? Okay, please.
Thank you very much. It's a great panel. I would like to understand the difference in terms of farming in Brazil and farming in Europe. Because in Europe, the average size of the farm is tiny, approximately 2 hectares. Whereas I would expect that in Brazil, that's historically much larger territories. How it would be possible to apply blended finance concept with these huge amount of very small farmers in Europe?
Great. Marcelo?
I think we have a very good parallel in Brazil. We have a project with Amazon LLC in the Amazon region with 340 farmers right now. And the average plot size is about 3 hectares. So the way we are doing that is combining several different farmers in the same region. So we do have, for example, 20 farmers that are bordering each other, and this will make a larger farm. So we have a multitude of farmers with small plots that we combine together, and we, at Belterra, we channel the money from Amazon into restoration. So we channel the money to the small landowners, paying them for their environmental services or purchasing the supplies, granting market access. That's very important, because if you have a small plot, it's very hard to sell to Cargill, for example. So we can have the offtake agreements with Belterra, and then we concentrate the production at Belterra, and then we transfer to Cargill with all the premiums to the farmers. So I think it's a way to embody everyone together in a bigger farm.
You create a cluster.
Thank you.
Exactly. There are 3 elements in order to do so that we apply through Belterra and through others. And then I open for a last question. The first one is aggregating agents. In Brazil, we have agroforestry implementers such as Belterra, with some farms with less than 1 hectare being able to join large operations at the capital market. We are talking that at the end of the Belterra fund, we are going to have $600 million to be distributed through the farmers. The second tool is sprinkle investments. So you use those aggregators to sprinkle investments and loans, but using the governance level, the rating that those companies have. So we can use offtake agreements, offtake companies and others to use that. And finally, when we use a lot of technology to monitor the social impact, so we can be DNFT and DCFT compliant, even on the smaller levels. When we use that, we are able to make very credible, low-cost, ineffective projects. Brazil has regions quite similar to Europe. And some cooperatives has over 10,000 producers, small farmers connected into them. It's much better to invest in the cooperatives and then repass that to the farmers, to the small producers. We have time for one last question, and then everybody will be able to have lunch. Anyone? Or everyone is hungry?
Then lunch it is.
Lunch it is. So anything that you needed, just look for us. It would be great to talk to you. And one quick lesson, learn Portuguese. It will be very relevant for green finance from now on. So thank you so much. Have a good lunch and
Obrigado.
see you in a few
Thank
time.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
you.
everyone.